Thanks for staying tuned. If you're just joining in, the program is The Morning Drive on Providence Television International. And on this segment, we will be looking at the newspaper analysis. I have with me in the studio the Chairman, Chief Executive Officer, Providence Television International, Dr. Emmanuel Egariba. You're welcome to the studio, sir.
Yes, Kekwa, thank you very much. It's nice to be here again.
Thank you. We'll start off with the Nigerian Tribune, where we have how Nigeria walked into food crisis by experts. Sir, your point of view, do you actually think there's a food crisis in Nigeria?
Of course there is. I mean, it's a natural issue. I mean, you won't be talking about food crisis in a situation where there's no hunger. Where there's hunger, it means that there's food crisis. And people are crying out now that they're hungry. It means that we are not producing enough to feed our people. And I think the solution to that is adequate farming, meaningful farming. All hands must be on deck. So there's food crisis apparently because there's a shortage, a huge shortage of food items in the market. Okay? What used to be the full basket of this nation is gone. The Middle Belt, those states like Benue, like Plateau, like Nasarawa, they're all gone. I mean, the food baskets, they are gone. Gone because of banditry and other security issues. The farms are empty. If you go up north, you know exactly what I'm talking about. The farms are empty. People cannot go to their farms. They are scared of bandits. They are scared of all kinds of incursions into their farms. And therefore, food cannot come as it ought to do. All right. And even for those in Lagos, they are crying out because in those days, I mean, food used to come from all sources, from up north, from south, and all of into Lagos. They empty into Lagos. So you probably said then that food was cheaper in Lagos than elsewhere. But right now, the situation remains the same all over the country. And that's why people are saying that, look, government must do something very drastic to arrest the situation. Because if government doesn't, then we have a major crisis on our hands. Major crisis in the sense that when people are hungry, they're also hungry. Okay? And a country that has no food security loses quite a substantial part of its sovereignty when you have to depend on imports for food. And I'm happy that a lot of people have said that we must grow what we eat and eat what we grow. Okay? The solution to this is that, as I've said, we must go back to our farms. And I also want to take us back to what the Obasanjo regime believed in those days. I think Shagari to a very large extent, Operation Feed the Nation. So if you have a small backyard, you can grow vegetables and things like that. You can even do fish farming. What we call, I mean, those in agriculture, they call it subsistence farming. In other words, you must do something to feed your immediate family. And some of these things can grow within a short space of time. Cassava, for instance, I think it's about 3 months. Vegetables, maybe about 3 months, and all of that. If you start fisheries, for instance, fish farming, the fish will be table bound in about 6 months. So you have something to feed your family. In fact, my wife was telling me yesterday that we have to reinvigorate. We used to have this small farm, fish farm in our compound. We have to reinvigorate it so we can consume what we grow.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So there's food crisis apparently.
Do you are you of the opinion that some of government's policies also should I say empower, or rather empower, yes, this food crisis that we're talking about? I'll give you an instance. About a year or two ago, where we had rice in Lagos produced by the Lagos state government. If that rice is coming down to Benin, it gets impounded. And at the end of the day, they will tell you that you cannot transport rice from Lagos to Benin based on some little policies. So should such things be encouraged?
Well, I can't get the veracity of what you're saying, but obviously that will not augur well for national development. It won't. And I imagine that Even these palliatives we are talking about is the wrong approach to it.
Okay.
We can't stop hunger by giving people palliatives.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
Because palliatives will be exhausted anyway. 1 month, 2 months, give and take, palliatives will be exhausted. So we need to do something more substantial. We need to do something more concrete, longer lasting, something that will endure for long. And what is that? We must go back to the farms. Whether you are a professional farmer or not, people must go back to the farm. Commercial farming, subsistence farming. These are two key areas that we must look at. And I believe that government too must also give loans, soft loans, to people who are genuinely interested in farming. What we hear these days is that yes, there are opportunities for people to take loans for farming, but what are the interest rates? I understand now that it's about 25 to 30% interest rate. So, but in those days, one of the banks, I shouldn't mention the name, used to encourage farming. They'll give you loans, you go into farming. In fact, they will even attach officers to monitor those farms. I don't think those facilities are there anymore. So we must look at a situation where majority of Nigerians should be able to embrace farming. And those who have the resources should also be encouraged to do mechanized farming. Mechanized farming is very popular up north. But down south, it is not because of the way the vegetation is and because of the soil. We don't need that here. But we also need fertilizers. So avenues for fertilizers, this should not be a federal government initiative alone. The state government should also key into that. We need fertilizers for farmers who are genuinely involved in farming. Because I do know also that a lot of people, they hide under the cloak of farming to do a few other things. So there must be genuine efforts to monitor. I mean, if there are loans, for instance, to monitor these farming regimes that people are into. And that way I'm sure that there will be some kind of increase in the food we produce and the food we grow in this country.
As regards security, that is another thing that hampers farmers from going to their farms, those who are willing to go into farming. What are the things that should be put in place to beef up security?
Well, this has been talked about over and over again. Security, we need to develop a system that reduces the tendency for people to go into banditry. Okay, banditry, well, I understand it's a big business now. What of those who are involved, who are behind these issues? How many of them are apprehended? When you get the bandits, ask them questions. Who are those behind you and things like that? And a lot of people have also said that the military authorities should rejig their system of operations so that banditry can be reduced to the barest minimum. In the 80s, for example, we didn't have anything like banditry. And yet, the authorities were quite sure that they were on top of their game. So I expect the federal government, because they're in charge of military authorities, to up their game in this regard. We have said it over and over again. People cannot travel freely. People cannot go to their farms. Communities are being ravaged on a daily basis. So the military, when I say the military, the combination of all the security forces must put their hands together and work. It's a work plan. And intelligence must also come into the forefront. Intelligence in the sense that even before these activities are hatched, they are nipped in the bud. And we wait. It's a kind of fire brigade thing. We wait until these bandits wreak havoc on the community before we act. No, we should nip the activities in the bud. That's the job of intelligence, okay? I mean, and intelligence forces in this country that can do just that. And we must have, technology must also play a part, okay? Things like drones, to go into the enclaves and work things out properly. They are emboldened. I mean, these bandits are emboldened on a daily basis because nothing is done as a kind of reprisal, all right? So they're emboldened, and the United Nations is quite worried. I mean, many world bodies are quite worried that Nigeria, we should be at the forefront of security measures and the forefront of good governance, in terms of keeping these bandits at bay, we are lagging behind.
Okay.
And don't forget, when we have security issues such as this, it affects also the level of investments we have in the country. Investors will be scared, all right? They wouldn't like to come to an environment that is riddled with all kinds of issues. So I believe that, yes, food security is very important. Once we tackle food security, a lot of things will come down. A lot of things will come down.
Okay.
And by the way, the food security we're also talking about is allied to fuel price, because even if you have the food coming from the farms,
how do you transport it?
the transportation issue is there. The roads are not particularly good. Fuel is high, so and these vehicles, you will have seen it on television many times, when they tip over, they fall over. It happened at Yapoma the other day, and that created a lot of problems for travelers. So they're all interwoven. When you talk about security, you cannot take it really in isolation. You must tie it down to the issue of fuel and the issue of good roads. They are all interwoven.
All right, we're moving away from the issue of a food crisis, and we'll be going down to the Daily Sun. Separatist agitations. Reps seek 10 million naira fine, 25 years jail term for culprits. So, coming from the angle of the law, you smiled.
Well, the issue is, it's like a marriage, for instance, between a couple. There must be a time when, if things go awry, if things go bad, when the two people will say, no, I think we should end this relationship. A time comes like that, okay? So it is, with agitators. And, well, there's a right for them to say, okay, look, we want to do this, we want to do that. All these issues about elders, patriots, going to see the president, it's all about this, really. I mean, if you don't want to, you don't want the groups to make room for disintegration, there must be something that you put on the table for anybody to talk about. And I think there must be reasons for people who agitate, fundamental reasons for them, either because they are shortchanging the system or because they don't get their dues appropriately.
Okay.
Right. So, and if you look across now, it's a pity though. Up north we have agitation. In the southeast we have agitation. Even in the southwest we have agitation. People are talking about Odua Republic. They're talking about Biafra. They're talking about Arewa Republic and things like that. It means that we need to sit down and we call all the nationalities, ethnic nationalities, to a roundtable conference. Okay. And this is what the confab, the Jonathan confab, should be addressing, which he addressed really. So we must look at that. In fact, people are now saying that the Tinubu administration should go back to that report and see how we can gain from all that was discussed. I mean, there were many eggheads who gathered together for that confab, and they were honest, I think, in their submissions. So really, question of agitation, does it stop them? I mean, I think that's the question to ask. Even with the jail term and things like that, does it stop agitation? Okay? And I think the House of Reps members must look at the fundamental issues involved. Are they genuinely canvassed?
Okay.
For instance, when they are not genuinely canvassed, yes, you have room for reprisal. So, but if we look at the fundamentals and we believe that yes, there's lopsidedness in one area and there's lopsidedness in another area, then we begin to think along the same line with them.
And so from the legal angle, because I know you're quite versed in that, most people do not know you're a barrister. They propose...
a lawyer, yes.
Yes, a lawyer. Proposed 5-year jail term for illegal possession. From the ambit of the law, for some people who might not know, is this really, really on the okay side? Does it mean that people cannot hold the possession?
But how do you mean when you say illegal possession?
They're talking about the House of Reps. They are seeking. They're also proposing a 5-year jail term for illegal possession.
Yeah, that's what I threw the question back at you. How do you mean by illegal possession? Legal would mean that yes, you did not go through the right process or the right procedure. But you also forget that the Constitution talks about assembly of people, freedom of expression, freedom of speech, freedom of association. So you can gather and do all sorts of things. But look at the last protest that we had. The police, they were handicapped. Why? Because the people said that we have a right to protest. And I think that's what the House of Reps people are looking at, for the future. So if you are talking about protests and things like that, they can come hard on you and all that. But it's against the Constitution. The Constitution gives you, as long as you stay within the ambit of the law, which stipulates that, yes, there must not be destruction of properties and things like that. If you go, I mentioned the case of people going on civil disobedience. If you go on civil disobedience, you are not destroying anything. You just keep mum and you go in your thousands on the streets, okay? And you're not agitating viciously or agitating with the aim of destroying properties, but you're just going and making your points known. Maybe you carry placards and things like that. I think Nigerians will come to terms with that very quickly. And I also think that, yes, we have a situation on our hands where government should respond to the needs of the people. When they're agitating, people do not just wake up from their slumber and begin to agitate and begin to organize protests and things like that. There must be reasons for people to come out and protest. The government tends to, they tend to ascribe all of these to politics, and I don't think it is always politics. Okay. When people are hungry and they want to protest, yes, they have a right to protest when they're hungry. When the people don't have good roads, they have a right to tell government that we need good roads, okay? When people don't have good health facilities, they can go to government house and tell government that, look, Mr. Governor, we need good facilities in so and so places. Those are their rights. And in any case, they don't even need the police to do that. No? But they can need the police to guide against incursions, because these things might be hijacked. That's the duty of the police on such occasions.
Okay.
They keep the protesters in check against people who are likely to carry out incursions. So I think that's what we must be looking at.
Yes. Looking at. So on a final note, would you agree with that proposed 5-year jail term for illegal processions?
Well, the law courts are there. The law courts are there. The people who are arraigned will have their lawyers, okay? But illegal possession, I think that we must moderate. And we must begin to look at the language very deeply. Illegal possession, we had the Shiite movement the other day, for instance, and they ended up doing some very much contrary things. That's the kind of thing I think government, or perhaps the House of Reps, is looking at. Yes.
Okay.
Things that are tainted, obviously, from the angle of religion. For example, you take a second look at that. But when people are agitating for things that affect their well-being, I think we must also take a second look at that.
All right. Thank you so much, sir. On the news analysis, that will be our wrap-up for today. But then, don't go away as Morning Drive continues with our interview segment in just a few seconds. Don't go away.